What would you do if the person who saved your life was suddenly accused of being a thief and a liar, and you only had 8 hours to prove everyone wrong? If you love stories about people who never give up, please hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe to Viral Tales. We love hearing from you, so drop a comment and tell us where you are watching from. Maya Santos still remembered the exact words her stepmother said before leaving her on that dusty road 22 years ago. "You are not my child. You never were. I cannot look at your face anymore." At 6 years old, Maya had stood there with an old brown suitcase, watching the car drive away until it became a tiny dot on the horizon. She remembered thinking that maybe if she stood very still and very quiet, her stepmother would come back. But she never did. Now at 28, Maya was a successful architect with her own office in Manhattan. She designed beautiful buildings that touched the sky. Rich people paid her lots of money to turn their dreams into real places where families could live and work. Her life was good. Her life was perfect, until her phone rang at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. "Miss Santos, this is Attorney James Parker. You need to come to my office right now. Your father, Robert, is being sued. Someone says he stole $3 million from people who trusted him with their money. And Miss Santos, the evidence against him looks very, very bad." The phone shook in Maya's hand. Robert Wellington, the man who had found her abandoned and alone on that terrible day. The man who had stopped his car, walked over to a scared little girl, and said, "I will not leave you here alone. I promise." The same Robert who had taken her home, given her a bedroom with pink walls, paid for the best schools, and never once made her feel like she was different from Emma, his real daughter who was born 2 years after Maya came to live with him. "How much time do we have?" Maya asked, already grabbing her car keys from the kitchen counter. 8 hours to present a defense. "But Miss Santos, there is something else you need to know. The accusation came from Wellington and Associates, from your own father's company." Maya stopped moving. She felt like someone had punched her in the stomach. Wellington and Associates was a construction company Robert had built from nothing. He had started with just a small truck and a dream when he first came to America from Brazil. Now it was one of the biggest building companies in New York. But last year, Robert had a heart attack. His heart stopped working right, and the doctor said he needed to rest. So Robert had given control of the company to Victor Chun, his business partner. Victor was someone Robert trusted with everything. Victor came to their house every Sunday for dinner. Victor was like family. As Maya drove through the busy streets of New York, the memories played in her mind like an old movie. She remembered Robert standing beside that dusty road, his hand reaching out to her. She remembered how scared she was, how she almost ran away. But Robert had smiled, a kind smile, a safe smile. He had said, "My name is Robert. What is your name?" And when she whispered Maya, he had said, "That is a beautiful name. Would you like to come have some breakfast, Maya? I make really good pancakes." Robert had kept his promise that day. He had kept every promise he ever made to her. He paid for piano lessons, even though Maya was terrible at piano. He came to every school play, even the boring ones. He taught her how to ride a bike, how to be brave, how to believe that she deserved good things. When other kids asked why her skin was darker than her dad's skin, Robert would say, "Because Maya got all the beautiful sunshine, and I got stuck with boring pale skin." It always made her laugh. At the lawyer's office, Attorney Parker was a short man with gray hair and worried eyes. He pushed a huge stack of papers across his big wooden desk. "Mr. Chin says that Robert stole $3 million from a housing project. He has papers with Robert's signature. He has bank records showing money going into Robert's account. He even has recordings of meetings where Robert supposedly talked about taking the money." Maya looked through the papers. Each page looked bad, really bad. There were bank statements showing money moving from the company account to Robert's personal account. There were emails that seemed to show Robert planning to hide the money. There were recordings of phone calls. Everything pointed to one conclusion. Robert was guilty. But Maya knew something that these papers could not show. She knew Robert. She knew that Robert once drove 3 hours in a snowstorm to return $20 to a worker he had accidentally overpaid. She knew that Robert cried when he saw homeless people on the street. She knew that Robert gave away more money to charity than most people earned in a year. Robert was many things. He was stubborn. He was protective. Sometimes he was too trusting. But dishonest? Never. Not even once. Not even a little bit. Attorney Parker, I want to see the recordings. All of them. Miss Santos, perhaps it would be better to think about settling this case. Maybe we can make a deal where Robert admits some guilt, but does not go to jail. Maya looked directly into the lawyer's eyes. Her voice was calm but strong. The recordings. I want to hear every single one. Now, the lawyer realized something in that moment. He was not talking to a scared daughter. He was talking to a professional woman who had just decided to go to war. When the first recording started playing, Maya heard Victor's voice. But something was wrong. The words sounded strange. Choppy, like someone had cut them up and put them back together wrong. Maya had spent years in college learning about buildings, but she had also taken computer classes. She knew about audio editing. She knew about digital manipulation. And she knew, without any doubt, that these recordings had been changed. Victor had created fake evidence. He had edited conversations. He had cut Robert's words and rearranged them to make Robert sound guilty. He had built a perfect trap, taking advantage of a man who had trusted him completely, a man who had treated him like a son. For the first time since receiving that terrible phone call, Maya smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was a smile of someone who just figured out how to win a fight that everyone else thought was already lost. Victor Chin had made one huge mistake. He looked at Maya and saw only Robert's adopted daughter, that little girl who had been rejected and abandoned by her own family, that child nobody wanted. What Victor did not know was that the same little girl who had survived being left on a dusty road had grown up to become exactly the kind of person who turns defeats into victories. The same child who had lost everything at 6 years old had become a woman who now had powerful friends, important connections, and the intelligence to use both. As the sun began to set over Manhattan, painting the sky orange and pink, Maya organized her thoughts. She made a mental list of every move she would make in the next few hours, every call she would place, every favor she would ask for, every piece of evidence she would find. At 6 years old, she had lost everything because cruel adults underestimated her. At 28, she had all the tools she needed to make sure Victor Chin learned what happens when you underestimate a survivor. Maya picked up her phone and started making calls. She had 8 hours to save the man who had saved her, and she was not going to waste a single minute. Over the next 3 days, Victor Chin acted like a hunter who had finally caught the animal he had been chasing. He was confident. He was proud. He thought he had won. He called every newspaper that wrote about construction and business. He went on television and gave interviews. He posted messages on social media telling everyone in the building industry about what Robert had supposedly done. He even sent an email to every single person who worked at Wellington and Associates, telling them about Robert's so-called crimes. It is very sad when someone we respected so much decides to destroy his own reputation, Victor said during an interview on a business news channel. He sat in his big leather chair in the office that used to belong to Robert, the office Robert had worked in for 30 years. But the honesty and integrity of the company must come first. We cannot protect criminals, even when they are people we once loved. Maya watched the interview from Robert's apartment. She had moved in temporarily to take care of her father since the accusation started. Robert sat in his favorite armchair, his hands shaking, not because he was old, not because he was sick, but because someone he had trusted like a son had stabbed him in the back. "Gabby, I still do not understand," Robert said for the 10th time that morning. He always called Maya by her nickname. David, he was like family. When you and Emma were little girls, he came here every Sunday. Linda made that special pot roast he loved so much. He was at Emma's graduation. He cried at her wedding. How could he do this to me? Maya held her father's trembling hands. Robert was 67 years old. He had built an empire starting with nothing. He had come to America as a young man with only $200 in his pocket. He had worked construction jobs in the freezing cold and the burning heat. He had saved every penny. He had taken risks. He had bet everything on his dreams. And now he was watching his reputation being destroyed by someone he had helped succeed, someone he had mentored, someone he had loved like family. Dad, do you remember the first time you told me about how you found me? Maya asked, trying to take his mind off the pain. Robert smiled for the first time in days. His eyes became soft with the memory. Of course I remember. You were standing in front of that horrible old cabin with that little brown suitcase. You looked at me like I was a monster coming to hurt you. You were so scared but also so brave. You did not cry. You just stared at me with those big, serious eyes. And do you remember what Linda said when you brought me home? Maya asked, do you remember when she questioned whether adopting me was a good idea? Robert nodded slowly. I told her that sometimes life gives us chances to make a real difference. I said that you were not just an abandoned child. You were a survivor. And survivors have a special kind of strength inside them, a strength that most people never have to find. I saw that strength in your eyes that day, Gabby. I saw a fighter. Maya squeezed his hands more tightly. Exactly, Dad. You were right about that. And Victor has no idea what he just woke up. What Victor did not know, what he could not have known, was that his actions over the past 3 days had done something unexpected. He had awakened the same little girl who had survived being abandoned by the only mother she had ever known. The same child who had stood on that dusty road, alone and terrified, but who had not given up, who had not fallen apart, who had picked up her suitcase and started walking, even though she had nowhere to go. That afternoon, Victor made his biggest mistake. He called Maya. His voice on the phone was smooth and fake, like oil pretending to be water. Maya, sweetheart, I know this must be so difficult for you. Finding out who your father really is. The kind of man he really is. But I want you to know that I have always admired your work as an architect. You are talented. You are smart. Maybe we should meet for coffee and talk about some opportunities at the company. I would love to have someone with your skills working with us. Maya stayed quiet for a few seconds. She let the silence stretch out. She wanted Victor to think she was weak. She wanted him to believe she was confused and vulnerable. Victor, thank you so much for calling, Maya finally said, making her voice sound small and scared. I am really shaken up by all of this. I do not know what to think anymore. I understand completely, Victor said. His voice dripped with false sympathy. Listen, Robert made some very serious mistakes, very bad choices. But that does not mean you have to pay for what he did. You have talent. You have a bright future ahead of you. Do not let his actions destroy your opportunities. You deserve better than that. Victor was doing exactly what Maya had hoped he would do. He was offering her a way out, a way to save herself while abandoning Robert. He was showing her his true nature. He thought he had broken her spirit. He thought she was just a naive little girl who would betray her father to save her own career. Do you really believe my father did those terrible things? Maya asked, putting fake tears into her voice. Maya, I have seen all the evidence with my own eyes, Victor said, his voice becoming more confident. I know it is painful to accept the truth. I know it hurts. But sometimes the people we love the most end up disappointing us in the worst ways. The important thing now is for you to protect yourself, to move forward with your life, to not let his mistakes drag you down with him. After she hung up the phone, Maya smiled. It was the second time she had smiled since this nightmare began. Victor had just given her exactly what she needed. He had confirmed that he truly believed she was weak, that she was just a frightened little girl who would crumble under pressure. What Victor could not see was that the same girl who had been rejected by her stepmother for being too different had turned that rejection into fuel. She had used every insult, every cruel word, every moment of being told she was not good enough, and she had transformed it all into unstoppable determination. The same child Robert had found holding that old suitcase had grown into a woman who now designed buildings for the richest and most powerful people on the East Coast. She had contracts with investors who controlled billions of dollars. She knew lawyers who had never lost a case. She knew journalists who could make or break reputations with a single article. While Victor celebrated his supposed victory in the office he had stolen from Robert, Maya sat at her kitchen table with her laptop and 3 phones. She made a list, a very detailed list. Every influential person she knew, every favor people owed her, every piece of information she had quietly collected about Victor over the past 3 days. Maya had not been sitting around crying. She had been investigating. She had called former employees of Wellington and Associates. She had talked to accountants. She had spoken with contractors who had worked with Victor on other projects. And what she had discovered made her blood run cold and her resolve burn hotter. Victor had done this before. Not the exact same crime, but similar things. Small thefts, hidden fees, money that disappeared and reappeared in strange places. But he had always been careful, always smart, always just barely on the legal side of the line. Until now, until he had gotten greedy and tried to steal $3 million at once. Victor Chun had made the classic mistake that all predators eventually make. He had confused silence with weakness. He had mistaken patience for surrender. He had looked at Maya's quiet response to his phone call and thought he had won. What he did not know was that Maya had learned something important from being abandoned on that road 22 years ago. She had learned that the people who underestimate you are the people who give you the greatest advantage. Because while they are celebrating and getting careless, you are watching and planning and preparing your strike. Maya opened her laptop and started typing. She had work to do, phone calls to make, evidence to gather, traps to set, and she had less than 5 hours left before the deadline. The hunter had become the hunted. Victor just did not know it yet. Maya's first call was to Marcus Rodriguez, a forensic audio expert she had worked with on a construction project 2 years earlier. Marcus owed her a favor. She had recommended him for a job that had changed his career. He answered on the second ring. Marcus, this is Maya Santos. I need you to analyze some audio recordings. Tonight, right now, it is an emergency. For you, Maya, anything Marcus said, send them over. Within an hour, Marcus called back. His voice was serious and angry. Maya, these recordings have been edited. Badly. Whoever did this thought they were clever, but I can see the cuts. I can see where words were moved around. I can see the digital fingerprints. This is fraud. This is evidence tampering. I can testify to this in court. I can prove it. Maya felt relief wash over her like cool water. Can you have a full report ready by tomorrow morning? I will have it ready in 3 hours, Marcus promised. Next, Maya called Jennifer Kim, an investigative journalist who had written dozens of articles exposing corporate fraud. Jennifer had been trying to get Maya to talk about her success story for months. Maya had always said no. Until now, Jennifer, Maya said when the journalist answered, I have a story for you. A story about a man who is stealing millions of dollars and blaming an innocent person. A story about fraud and betrayal. But I need you to hold the story until I give you permission to publish it. Can you do that? Jennifer did not hesitate. Send me everything you have. Then Maya called Thomas Chun, Victor's own cousin. Thomas had left Wellington and Associates 6 months earlier after a fight with Victor. Maya had designed Thomas's house 3 years ago. They had stayed friends. She knew Thomas had been suspicious of Victor for a long time. Thomas, Maya said carefully, I think Victor has been stealing from the company. I think he has been doing it for years. And now he is trying to blame Robert. Do you have any information that might help me prove it? Thomas was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that changed everything. Maya, I have been waiting for someone to ask me that question. I have copies of financial records. Records that Victor does not know I kept. Records that show money disappearing from projects over the past 5 years. I was too afraid to come forward because Victor threatened my family. But if you are willing to fight him, I will help you. Maya felt her heart beat faster. Send me everything. Tonight, by midnight, Maya had gathered enough evidence to bury Victor 10 times over. She had Marcus's forensic audio report proving the recordings were fake. She had financial documents from Thomas showing a pattern of theft going back 5 years. She had statements from 3 former employees who had witnessed Victor's schemes but had been too scared to speak up. She had bank records that proved the $3 million had never gone into Robert's account at all. It had been redirected to an offshore account that Victor controlled. At 6 a.m, Maya walked into the courtroom with Attorney Parker. The lawyer looked at the stack of documents. she was carrying, and his eyes went wide. "Miss Santos, what is all this?" "This is how we win," Maya said simply. Victor Chin walked into courtroom at exactly 9 o'clock. He wore an expensive suit. His hair was perfect. His smile was confident. He looked at Maya and gave her a little wave, like they were old friends. He still thought she was weak. He still thought he had won. The judge, a stern woman named Judge Martinez, called a court to order. "Mr. Chun, you have accused Mr. Robert Wellington of embezzling $3 million. Please present your evidence." Victor stood up. He presented his fake documents. He played his edited recordings. He spoke about how sad he was to discover that his mentor and friend had betrayed everyone. He even pretended to cry a little. When Victor finished, Judge Martinez looked at Attorney Parker. "Does the defense have anything to present?" Maya stood up instead of the lawyer. "Your Honor, my name is Maya Santos. I am Robert Wellington's daughter, and I would like to present evidence that will prove not only is my father innocent, but that Victor Chun has been stealing from Wellington and Associates for the past 5 years." The courtroom went completely silent. Victor's confident smile disappeared. His face turned pale. Maya presented Marcus's audio analysis. She showed the court exactly where Victor had cut and edited the recordings. She presented Thomas's financial records. She showed the pattern of theft. She presented statements from former employees. She showed bank records proving the money had gone to Victor's offshore account, not Robert's. With each piece of evidence, Victor Chin sank deeper into his chair. His expensive lawyer tried to object, tried to argue, but Judge Martinez silenced him with a single look. Finally, Maya presented her last piece of evidence, a recording, a real recording that had not been edited. It was from a security camera in the Wellington and Associates office, a camera that Victor had forgotten about. In the recording, Victor could be heard talking to someone on the phone. "I have to get rid of Robert before he discovers what I have been doing. I will make it look like he is the thief. Nobody will believe him over me. That stupid adopted daughter of his will be too emotional to think straight. This will be easy." The courtroom exploded with noise. Judge Martinez banged her gavel. Victor Chen put his face in his hands. Judge Martinez looked at Victor with disgust. "Mr. Chun, not only are you guilty of fraud and embezzlement, but you have also committed perjury and evidence tampering. You have destroyed a good man's reputation. You have stolen from investors who trusted you, and you have shown absolutely no remorse. I am ordering your immediate arrest. You will face criminal charges, and I am ordering you to pay Mr. Wellington $10 million in damages for what you have done to his reputation and his health." 2 police officers walked over and put handcuffs on Victor's wrists. As they led him away, he looked at Maya. His eyes were filled with shock and hatred. "How did you do this?" he whispered. Maya looked him straight in the eye. "You made the same mistake my stepmother made 22 years ago. You thought being abandoned made me weak. You thought being underestimated meant I had no power. But you forgot something important. Survivors do not survive by being weak. We survive by being stronger than the people who try to destroy us." Victor was led out of the courtroom. Maya turned to see Robert standing behind her. Tears were running down his face. He opened his arms and Maya ran into them, just like she had done when she was 6 years old and scared and alone. "Thank you, Gabby," Robert whispered. "Thank you for saving me." "You saved me first, Dad," Maya whispered back. "I was just returning the favor." 3 months later, Wellington and Associates was back in Robert's control. The company's reputation had been restored. The investors who had been stolen from got their money back. Victor Chin was in prison, serving a 15-year sentence for fraud, embezzlement, and evidence tampering. Maya stood in her office, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. On her desk was a photograph. In the picture, a 6-year-old girl with big, serious eyes stood next to a man with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Both of them were smiling. It had been taken the day after Robert had found her on that dusty road. Maya's phone rang. It was Robert. "Gabby, I am making pancakes. The special ones. Can you come over for breakfast?" Maya smiled. "I will be there in 20 minutes. Dad." As she drove through the busy streets of New York, Maya thought about her stepmother. the woman who had abandoned her, the woman who had told her she was worthless. Maya wondered where that woman was now. If she had ever thought about the little girl she had left on that road. If she had ever wondered what happened to her. Maya hoped that somehow, some way, her stepmother would hear about the story, about how the little black girl she had thrown away had grown up to become someone powerful, someone successful, someone who had just taken down a criminal and saved a man who had saved her. Because the greatest revenge is not hurting the people who hurt you. The greatest revenge is becoming so successful, so strong, so incredible that they realize they made the biggest mistake of their lives when they underestimated you. Maya had learned something important from being abandoned. She had learned that the people who reject you do not get to define you. She had learned that being underestimated is actually a gift because it means your enemies never see you coming. She had learned that survivors do not just survive. They thrive, they fight, they win. And most importantly, she had learned that family is not about blood. Family is about who shows up, who stays, who fights for you when everyone else has given up. Robert had shown up on that dusty road 22 years ago. He had stayed through every difficult moment. He had fought for her when her own birth family had abandoned her. And when the time came, Maya had done the same for him, because that is what real families do. They save each other, over and over again, no matter what. As Maya pulled up to Robert's house, she saw him standing in the doorway, waving at her with a spatula in his hand. The same kind smile on his face, the same gentle eyes. She smiled back, grabbed her purse, and walked toward the home that had saved her life all those years ago. Sometimes the people who find you are more important than the people who made you. Sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the family you were born into. And sometimes a little girl who was told she was worthless grows up to be the hero of her own story. That little girl was Maya Santos, and this was her victory.